If payment details are fuzzier than a static field webinar, beware. You want to know exactly when and how you're going to get paid for your expertise. If your contract doesn't say what happens if there's a disagreement, things can get messy fast. Hello, Genius. Welcome back to the Own Your Genius podcast, the space where we encourage you to use your education and your experiences to create dope businesses that you control. I'm your host, Attorney LaConya Murray, owner of Off the Mark IP Solutions and founder of Mark Legal. Last week, we hosted our How to Read a Contract Like a Lawyer workshop, and let me tell you, it was packed with gems. If you missed it, don't worry. Today's episode is just for you. We're diving into 5 red flags you need to watch for before signing any contract. Whether you're hiring a contractor, collaborating with a brand, or licensing your content, these are the things that you want to look for because they could cost you if you do overlook them. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'll tell you how you can catch the replay, especially if you're a Mark Legal subscriber, because you already have free access. Welcome back to the Own Your Genius podcast, where we talk about building smart businesses, creating standout brands, and turning your intellectual property into income. I'm your host, Attorney LaConya Murray, founder of Off the Mark IP Solutions. We're a boutique firm that helps professionals and experts use legal clarity and brand strategy to protect what they've built and grow what they've created. We got a good one for you today, so let's get started. Contracts are like seatbelts. You don't think about them until you need them. And then when you need them, you really need them to work. I've seen way too many entrepreneurs get burned because they didn't know what to look for. I had one client who thought they were signing a simple collaboration agreement, and turns out they were giving away the rights to their entire brand identity. That's why this conversation is so important. So let's get into it. So what I want you to do is spot these sneaky little contract surprises. The first thing that you want to look out for are vague scopes of works. Now, I've seen contracts where the scope of work was defined as helping the client transform their mindset. But then it didn't talk about what that actually meant. It didn't spell it out. So that's a nightmare. Like, that's just open-ended for interpretation by both parties. And whenever you're putting together your services, whether it's a coaching package, a workshop, consulting sessions, whatever they are, the scope of work should be clearly described. How many phone calls, what's included, when's the finish line. You need to spell it out so expectations are crystal clear and you can avoid the, oh, I thought that was included moments. If the scope of work isn't clear, you're setting yourself up for endless revision requests, scope creep, and sometimes even disputes about payment. I've seen contracts where the entire job was defined in one vague sentence, and that led to months of back and forth. So here's a quick tip. For every project, break down the deliverables, the timelines, and the responsibilities. For example, if you're designing a website, specify the number of pages, the number of revisions, and the deadline. If you're providing consulting, outline how many one-on-one sessions are included, whether the client gets email access between sessions. The more detail, the better. Not only does this protect you, but it also reassures the other party that you're professional and trustworthy. The second thing I want you to look out for are one-sided termination clauses. Because imagine that your client can bail at any time, but you're locked in tighter than a Zoom call. Listen, that's not fair. Look for agreements that let both sides exit gracefully, ideally with notice, so that you're not left prepping for a workshop that no one's attending. Balance is the key. I once worked with a consultant whose contract allowed her client to cancel with 24 hours notice, but then she had to give 30-day notice. That's a huge imbalance. If your contract isn't fair, you risk damaging your reputation and your business finances. Ideally, both parties should have equal rights to terminate, and there should be provisions for what happens after the contract is terminated. Like, how will payments and deliverables be handled now that you're no longer in a working relationship? Ask for mutual termination clauses and specify what's required for notice. Is it an email? Is it a written letter? Or even a phone call? And don't forget to include what happens if a project is canceled before it's finished. Will you be paid for services already rendered? What about non-refundable deposits? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered when something's being terminated. So make sure that they are. The third red flag you want to look out for are unclear payment terms. If payment details are fuzzier than a static field webinar, beware. You want to know exactly when and how you're going to get paid for your expertise. Clear payment schedules, due dates, and late fees are your friends. No more chasing invoices or playing detective with your bank account. This is a big one. Vague payment terms are a recipe for stress. I've heard of stories where entrepreneurs waiting months for payments because the contract didn't specify when invoices were due or what counted as completion. Always make sure that your contract spells out the payment structure. Is it a flat fee? Is it a retainer? Is it hourly? When is payment due? Are there any upfront deposits? Is this contract based off of milestone payments? Or is it an installment plan? What happens if a payment is late? Are there late fees? Is there interest? Is there a pause in services? And how should payments be made? Bank transfer, credit card, or something else. Do not leave this up to chance or trust alone. A good contract makes payment expectations and consequences for missing them very, very clear. The fourth red flag that you want to look out for is a contract that does not have a dispute resolution plan, because sometimes even your best client relationship hits a speed bump. If your contract doesn't say what happens if there's a disagreement, things can get messy fast. Include a clear, simple process for resolving disputes. Think mediation before litigation. It keeps your focus on serving your clients and not fighting battles. Here's the thing, disagreements are inevitable. Maybe a deliverable isn't what the client expected, or maybe a payment is delayed, or someone accuses the other one of breaching a contract. If you don't have a plan, you're leaving your business vulnerable to expensive, drawn-out fights. A solid contract will include a dispute resolution clause, something like, if there's a disagreement, both parties will try mediation before taking things to court. That way, you have a roadmap to follow when things go off the rails. These details matter because they can save you time and money if things go sideways. And the final red flag that we're going to talk about today are hidden IP ownership transfers. Your expertise is your currency. You need to be aware of sneaky clauses that try to claim ownership over your signature frameworks, your course material, or your published tools. If you create it, you should control it, unless you knowingly decide otherwise. Read carefully and protect what makes your brand unique. This is a red flag that trips up even seasoned entrepreneurs. Intellectual property, or IP for short, includes everything from your logos to your ebooks, your online courses, your templates, and more. Even your presentations that you're giving when you are invited to an organization to speak. All that is your intellectual property. Some contracts will sneak in language that says anything you create for a client belongs to them, which could include your underlying methodology. That's not always fair, especially if you use those materials for multiple clients. If that is the base and the foundation of your work, you don't want language like that. Make sure the contract specifies exactly what the client gets. For example, it can say something like a limited license to use your materials for their business versus what stays yours, which is going to be the actual intellectual property rights. And if you're unsure, make sure you get legal review. Your ideas and creative assets are the foundation of your business. And once you give them away, it's hard to get them back. Now, those were the 5 red flags that I want you to look for. But what happens if you're reviewing the contract and you actually spot one of these red flags? First of all, do not panic and do not settle. Ask for clarification, suggest changes, and remember, contracts are meant to serve both parties. If something feels off, get a second opinion from a legal professional who understands your business model. When your contracts are clear and fair, you get to focus on what you do best, which is changing lives with your expertise. So let's talk about some practical steps that you can take if you see these red flags. First, always read your contract slowly and don't be afraid to ask questions. If you do see a red flag, highlight it and then ask the other party to walk through the reasoning behind it. Like, don't make an assumption and say, hey, why did you write this way? Be prepared to negotiate. Sometimes it's as simple as suggesting language that better reflects your intent. If you're not comfortable negotiating, or if you're unsure about a clause, reach out to an attorney who works with entrepreneurs. Finally, keep copies of every signed contract and don't rely on memory or handshakes. Your business deserves the protection that only a strong, clear, written contract can give. Now, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever spotted a red flag in a contract? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments and let's build a community where we can all learn from each other's experiences. Remember, contracts aren't just legal formalities. They're the business tools that empower you to own your genius and to thrive. So to wrap up, let's just recap those 5 red flags. You ready? Vague scope of work, one-sided termination, unclear payment terms, no dispute resolution clause, and hidden IP transfers. If this episode opened your eyes to some things that you've been overlooking, the How to Read Your Contract Like a Lawyer workshop goes even deeper, right? In this session, we covered how to spot red flags and vague language, understand the structure and the purpose of the key clauses, and how to negotiate terms with confidence without sounding combative. We also talked about how to use contracts to protect your time, your money, and your intellectual property. And if you missed it, the good news is you can still catch the replay. If you're a Mark Legal subscriber, you already have free access. All you have to do is just log into marklegal.com, go to your dashboard, and scroll down to workshops. If you're not a subscriber, head on over to marklegal.com and join, and you'll get instant access to the replay. And plus all of our full legal resource library. Or if you're not ready to join Mark Legal yet, you can purchase the replay on its own. I'll drop the links to both in the show notes. Let's take this conversation over to ownyourgenius.co. I want you to share this episode with 3 people and have them join you there. But before you go, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and rate the podcast. Until next week, keep building your business, growing your brand, and owning your genius.